Well, we will. Why don't we get started? This will not be a long event, and we will have people, I think, kind of come in and out,
Yeah.
Throughout. And so, everyone can feel free to mute if you want, unmute, do whatever you'd like to do.
Not you, Tyler. Tyler, you muted. This is going well.
Oops. All right. I
Okay.
won't mute. Won't touch the damn screen. Oh my God. All right. So, I think I might have muted because of the dogs. That might have been it. So, if a leaf goes across the yard and it wasn't supposed to, then we get alerts from the dogs that let us know that something is awry. So if you hear noise in the background, it's the alert system that we have here to, for unwanted leaves and other debris that might float across the yard. We're going to have people that come in and out from this event. This will be short as advertised and promised. And, really, we just want to thank everyone for participating, for contribution, and most importantly, for your support. It has meant the world to me as I have gone through this process, and what a process it's been for the last 4+ years, of recovery. And so, this event and the Angioma Alliance, which Connie's going to talk a lot more about, are really important to me. And thank you for your support in this event as well, because it does mean the world to me. And the nature of the work the Angioma Alliance is doing is really important to me. But I want to say a really heartfelt thank you to everybody who's on the call. You guys, I know there's not that many, but I don't want to go through and talk about every person, because then this would turn into a long session that I don't want it to be. I have to say my family has just been remarkable and unbelievable in this process of recovery. I mean, I don't know what I would have done without them, their support, their love. Mom and Bruce and Dad and Vicky and Ryder and Savannah and of course Giovanna has been amazing. She's here. Hello. So, and the one who has the most thankless job of everybody is Christy. She has the most thankless job of everyone. And even though she's not technically part of my family, boy, you wouldn't know it. She's awesome and amazing. So, again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your financial contributions, because this event is going to raise a lot of money for Angioma Alliance. And the good news is Angioma Alliance is gaining some real momentum, which, Connie will chat about in a moment again. And that means financially we're gaining some momentum, and we're able to do something with these dollars that's making a difference. And it's really, really important, because there is an end in sight to this. This is not, the kind of thing where it's just endless and there's no hope. There is an end in sight, and there is an opportunity for those who have suffered like I have from this affliction to not have to make some of the decisions that I've had to make in the last couple of years. So anyway, we'll get into all of that. We're going to have a brief conversation. Connie and I have a couple of things that we want to share, some questions for each other that we want to ask. And so Connie, let me introduce you by first saying, to those of you who, I think everybody on this call knows who Connie is, I want to say welcome. And Connie is the president, CEO, and founder of the Angioma Alliance. And she's done amazing work over the last couple of years. And so Connie, I would just like to ask you to maybe say a couple words and to ask, fire away, fire well.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, my words are thank you. We're really, really grateful for the support of all of you, for you coming this evening and trying to hear Tyler's story a little bit again. Probably for most of you, it's again. And also for hearing more about Angioma Alliance and the work that we're doing today. Again, we don't do it without you. You are what makes us possible. And so we wanted to start just by Tyler again sharing some information about what it is that he's been through, some of his experiences. And I think I haven't heard it all in one stream. So some of this is going to be new to me as well. And Tyler, the first thing that I wanted to ask you is, when did you know that there was something wrong? When did you know that things weren't quite right and something physically might be going on with you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't think I realized until much later on that I started to realize and see what was happening. It was the weekend of like May 20th-ish, 2017, that I was going to my son's graduation in college. And my mom and Bruce had gone up, and Savannah, hold on a second here. Don't allow that. Did I just click you off? No.
You're
Good.
right.
All right. Savannah and Christina were with me as well, and we were going up to see Ryder, and this was on a Friday. And I started to notice something. We went out to dinner the night before, and I just didn't feel right. Something felt weird. And I went back and went to bed and woke up the next morning on Saturday morning. And we drove to the site where the graduation was being held. And I was having a hard time seeing. I knew something was wrong. And so we went into where the graduation was, my mom and Bruce and we were looking down at the field, and there were like 3,000 kids graduating, and I couldn't see them. And so I knew something was up. And then after the graduation event, my son had a party. There was a party that parents and others had for him. And so I went to that, and I was seeing double. I mean, I knew something was dreadfully wrong there, but I didn't want to make a big stink because it was his party and so forth. So then I went back and went to bed and woke up the next morning. I called the doctor, and I said, geez, I think here's what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And he said, Tyler, this is serious. You could be having a stroke. And I said, no, I have a busy day planned. Can I go to the doctor like maybe Tuesday or Wednesday? This was on Sunday morning. I've got to move my son. And he said, no, I don't think you understand. He said, you need to get to an emergency room right away. You are having a stroke. And boom, that was it. So it was definitely not your typical weekend. That was when I knew. And unfortunately, it took a couple of days for me to get to the point where I was receiving the medical care I needed, but that's what happened.
So walk me forward in time. Eventually you wound up having surgery. What happened? How did you get to that place?
Well, so that was about 8 weeks later, and that was a very hard decision. I went from a guy who was like, kind of feeling like I was really on top of my game, in every way, to really at the bottom very quickly in the matter of days. I couldn't see, I couldn't speak, I couldn't walk. My mom would hold me up to walk up the stairs, and it was rough. And it was a hard time, and I got, for the first time, got really depressed. I mean, really depressed, like not even wanting to live type depressed. I mean, it was like I thought, oh my God, I could die any moment. My kids are right here. They came to visit me. I could die. It was awful. And I went to like 7 doctors. Every one of them said, nope, this is where this is in your brainstem. they all agreed on what it was, a cerebral cavernous malformation on my brainstem. And they all agreed that I shouldn't have surgery because it was too risky where it was located. And the eighth guy, Dr. Ogilvy, said, well, I think there might be a way to get in there. And thank God for Chris Ogilvy, because he found a way in there. And it took him a couple of days to want to get with this whole team and really kind of weave through how they were going to go through under my skull and up through my brain and get at this thing and get out and do what they needed to do without causing any further permanent damage. And that took probably a week or two, or I believe he was the eighth doc, and he said, yes, I'll do it. And the minute that I heard him say, I'll do it, I did not look back. That was it. I was like, I'm having this surgery. I'm getting this done. I never once looked back and thought twice about it. And that's weird, because I've talked to other people who are in the position of having a bleed in the brain, which is, as we know, brains aren't supposed to bleed, right? I've contemplated, do I have surgery or not? And it's a big decision. It's a very personal decision. It's not one that, you take lightly, because the damage that can happen as a result of having this kind of craniotomy could be worse than a bleed itself. Yep. So, it's really a tough spot to be in. And quite frankly, that's one of the things I love about Angioma Alliance so much, is the pursuit of alternative methods for therapy and treatment of this, as opposed to having to be in that position of having to make that decision of whether I do it or don't. I mean, it's such a big decision, because if you get it wrong, it can ruin your life forever. I like, oops, got that one wrong. I should have bought chocolate milk and I bought regular milk. No, should have bought these shoes versus those shoes. Oh well, guess I don't wear them. No, this is your brain that's messed up. So,
yeah,
it's a tough decision. Yeah.
Can I share that we do have patients, even Dr. Ogilvy's patients, who've had brain surgeries, brainstem surgeries, go really poorly,
right?
Who wound up being really disabled for the rest of their lives, in wheelchairs, right, able to speak, facial paralysis, just really devastating outcomes. So the fact that he was able to do so well by you was good fortune. It was a skilled surgeon, but it was also good fortune. And I guess I'm wondering, this is hypothetical, but if you'd have gotten the diagnosis, and this is also not a question that we talked about ahead of time. So, but if you'd have gotten the diagnosis and found out that there was some non-surgical way to deal with the lesion, what would that have meant for you?
Absolutely everything. I mean, the decision to have surgery or not have surgery was a big, I can't even describe what a big deal that was. I mean, that was really, when you stop and think about it, you're like kind of taking your own life into your hands. It's like playing Russian roulette. And so to have a non-surgical option would have meant everything. I mean, I would have taken that option hands down.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so most folks here know how you're doing now, but can you just share how? Sure. How did you come out of surgery, and how are you now compared to that?
So surgery was rough. I was in the ICU for a few days afterward, and my mother could probably tell some pretty funny stories about the days that followed the surgical procedure in the hospital, and me telling off the doctors and so forth. And I mean, it was whatever. I got worse before I got better. And I got, I lost speech and then gained it back right after the bleed. And then right before the surgery, I was bad. I got better. I'm sorry, I was bad. I got worse. I got somewhat better, then had surgery, then got bad again. And then slowly got better. And it's been slowly. I'm probably my own worst critic. I'm one who's very critical of myself, and think that my voice doesn't sound the way that it should, or get angry with myself when I get tired, or when my right side gets sleepy, or or my leg starts misbehaving or whatever. But and most of my ailments are physical ailments. They're issues around not the cognitive side of the equation, where I'm able to look at stuff, analyze information, think about things. That seems to be okay. Others may disagree with me on this call, but that seems to be okay. It's more the physical side of the equation. I can't hit a golf ball like I used to. I can't ski like I used to. I go, whatever. And you know what? I really don't care about that as much as I care about the important things in life are good. So, I feel like I've come a long way. In fact, I could even argue I'm in a better place now than I ever was. I would say, and there've been some other health issues that I've faced along the way, dealt with those. And this has been kind of like the training wheels to those other health issues. Dealing with this it was definitely the big issue. I mean, you talk about messing around with your brain. That's a pretty big deal. Connie, this all too well. This is what you do every single day. I don't know how you do it. You do it, by the way. But yeah, it's certainly something that makes one stop and think. But here I am a couple years later, and I think continuously improving is what I would say. Getting better and better and better. But you don't measure in days or weeks. It's measured in months or beyond. So yeah.
And so my last question for you is what motivated you to get involved with the Angioma Alliance? Why did you come to us? I mean, you were done by the time you found us. You were done.
Right. Well, I guess I've never, a couple things. First of all, I never stopped asking the questions, what do I do to get better? I was frustrated that I was not, I didn't just have surgery and boom, I was all better the next day. That was not the case.
Yeah.
And so you and I first met on the phone in August, I think face to face, maybe it was October of 17, a couple months after surgery. I was functional, but still frustrated. So, there was a strong desire to keep my foot on the gas and really go hard at trying to find a solution to why I was still getting tired, and why I was, what were some of the challenges and issues physically that I was having, why the disequilibrium wasn't going away as fast as I thought it should. But then when I got involved, and that was probably the first time I talked to you, then after that, I went to the conference and so forth, and I really started to see, wow, this is a really serious situation that a lot of people are affected by, a lot more than anybody knows. And it could be really bad. And I am really fortunate and very lucky, and I'm very grateful that I have this support mechanism and the resources and the family and everything to make sure that I am going to at some point be okay. Mm-hmm. Others aren't so lucky. And I wanted to help that. And very specifically, the two things that I think Angioma Alliance really does is, number one, is it provides a network. There is no other network that I've found that's even remotely close to the Angioma Alliance. Nothing at all. And secondly, you're looking for a cure. We're looking for a cure. Mm-hmm. We're trying to find a non-surgical alternative. And so those two things were really compelling. And I said, okay, well, I have to support that in some way. And whatever way I can, I have to put my foot forward and do the best I can to try to help. And that's what I've done the last couple of years. So you've been grilling me a lot here, Connie Lee. So let me now ask you, tell us, you founded this whole thing. You started the Angioma Alliance. Why? What did you do there? What made you want to start this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm grateful, that we are all grateful that you are part of us and that you chose to stay part of us even after surgery. For my story is it goes a little further back. My daughter was 4 months old when she was diagnosed. She was born this right around the turn of the century. So it seems like it was just yesterday, but it was actually more than 20 years ago. It was just around the turn of the century. She had been a colicky baby. It's a little hard to settle, but then she'd gone through about a month of being just fine, just being a regular baby again. And then right after Christmas in 1999, she changed back. She became irritable, hard to console. She had trouble sleeping. Eventually she was getting floppy. And then like December 31st, 1999 came and things were really bad, but we were like, this is the weekend, it's the holiday weekend. We can't call the doctor. She's probably just teething. This is maybe she's overreacting to a tooth coming in. So we waited a couple days, and it wasn't until Tuesday, which was like 2 or 3 days later, that I went to the pediatrician with her. And at that point, she definitely again was floppy, but he couldn't find anything. He tried. He looked her up and down. He looked in her ears. He sent us home with some amoxicillin, saying, maybe there's something going on in her ears. Can't really see it, but you never know. And he said, but the soft spot on the top of her head is raised. That's not that uncommon, but let's keep an eye on it. Come back in a week. So the next morning, she started vomiting, projectile vomiting. And I called him and I said, Doc, she's not keeping that amoxicillin down. I think we got to figure something out. And he went, oh, you need to get to the emergency room. You need to get to Children's Hospital. Don't even stay here. I was living in Williamsburg at that point with a community hospital. And he said, don't go there. Just go straight to the big hospital. I will call radiology and I will make sure that they get you in right away. And I still had no idea what he was thinking because he didn't share. So I'm still thinking at this point, okay, so maybe she's got a bad flu. So my husband and I showed up at radiology and they brought her right in. And then it didn't take but 15 minutes for the radiologist himself to come out and sit with us in the examining room and say, your daughter's brain is full of tumors. And today we need to take one of them out because otherwise she's not going to make it to tomorrow. It was large. It was 4 centimeters, which is, I don't know if you guys know what it was big for a baby. And so she had emergency surgery and came out with a few deficits, but got back to normal baby functioning. She was climbing things at the right time. And but then she wound up having another hemorrhage a year later, and then another one a year after that, and then another one a year after that. So for 4 years, she had a brain surgery each year in different lesions. She has a genetic form of the illness. Neither I nor her dad have it, but she's the first one in our family. And like each of her kids will have a 50% chance of having this as well. So by the time she turned 3, it was like, well, first off, enough is enough with hemorrhages, but also I don't want her growing up not knowing anybody, not knowing another kid with this. We didn't know anybody. We'd never heard of the illness before she got diagnosed. And I didn't want to go through her childhood not knowing what was to come. So I wanted to make sure I knew some grownups who had been through this. So my initial, what happened with the Angioma Alliance was it was initially meant just to bring families together, to do some education, because I found out there's a mailing list through the National Organization of Rare Diseases where I did wind up finding 2 other patients. And I also recognized at that point that I knew a lot more than they did because of my background, because of Julia's dad was a physician. So I wrote the editor of the textbook, Issam Awad, who didn't know me. I was just in Williamsburg, and I emailed him in the morning and said, hey, I want to start an organization. What do you think? And he wrote me back that afternoon and he said, go for it. We need this. Patients need to be brought together. They need better information. There's nothing on the internet, et cetera, et cetera. So we did that. And the initial idea was that this was going to be for patients. But it didn't take but 2 years before enough researchers came to me and said, If you guys want to make progress with research, it's going to have to happen with you. We can do as much as we can do with our funds that we get from NIH. Don't expect you to fundraise to fund research, but we need you to do things like run a science meeting so that we can all get together and talk to each other and learn from each other and collaborate, form new partnerships. And so we started doing that right away in 2005. We had our first little meeting in Durham, North Carolina at Duke, and we have done one every year since then, even last year when we were doing it virtually. Then they said, well, we really need cavernous angioma tissue. You can get us cavernous angioma tissue. We're just researchers working in our labs. We don't have access. So we started a tissue bank and we became the major suppliers of tissue. Then they wanted a patient registry because we want to be able to reach your patients and know what they're like. So we did that. Then we started a clinic and we started genetic testing, and thing after thing after thing that has allowed research to move along, we've taken on. And whenever we take something new on, we make sure that it's something that everyone can benefit from. We don't want to play favorites in the labs. We don't want to play favorites with companies, with industry partners now. We try to make sure everything we do has universal use. So that
so something, Connie, you and I didn't talk about this before, but it's something, I think is worth mentioning, is that we are looked at like the Angioma Alliance is looked at kind of internationally as this force to be reckoned with. I mean, it's really something. I mean, we have our retreats, our strategic planning retreats, and people from other countries come to see what we're doing. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. Would you talk about that for a moment?
Sure. So, we started out just being the first organization in the US. But since then, there have sort of been spin-offs in 21 other countries, including some rather large spin-offs. For a while, the group in the UK rivaled our size financially. They've since gone down a little bit because their major grant funder it was a limited time deal. But they're still doing amazing work and they're running a clinical trial there. So we have had, yes, reach globally, and we continue to collect patients, global patients, collect global researchers. We don't stop that way. And one of the things that we have, and I think this is the big point that I want to make, is that we have a perspective that's unique. We have the big picture perspective. Each researcher looks at their own stuff. Even those that are in consortiums only have a picture of what goes on in their consortium. And they have a bias in addition. And a lot of egos often are involved with that. We're the only ones who see the entire pipeline of treatments. And so what we are doing right now, a few years ago, that pipeline was about that big. There's like 3 things that were maybe going to work. Now the pipeline is enormous. And it's time for us to take that pipeline and figure out what we need to move forward. Not all of these ideas are going to be the best ideas practically. And so we are in the process of hiring someone who we're calling our industry relations director. And his job is to evaluate everything that's out there, figure out what practically we can move forward, what will have the most effect. And right now, there are options out there that look like if they get pushed along far enough, they will be cures. They're not just treatments, they're going to be cures. We have focused ultrasound. We have the possibility of gene therapy for people who have the familial form. And then we have a ton of different medicines that can help stop the hemorrhages, stop the lesions.
So 9-10 years from now, what does that look like to you?
9-10 years from now, we should have a cure in hand by 2025. So 3 or 4 years from now, we will have some pretty good treatments already. Right. We have a few drugs in trials right now. We just announced a new one 2 days ago. And so if any of them turn out to be good, then we'll have them, they'll be approved by 2025. But by 2030, I don't see any reason why the technology that other groups are using can't be applied to cavernous malformations and can't
Right.
get to a point where we have a cure.
So we're a small enough group that I would like to see if others have questions. You know, we've got Connie. This is a wonderful thing. I have the good fortune of having some wonderful access to Connie, and she has been absolutely remarkable in helping me navigate my road to recovery. And she is a wealth of knowledge. And so, you know, obviously everyone on this call has an interest or concern. Can I ask you, I'm sure that there's got to be some questions out there somewhere.
I've got one, Tyler. Connie, Jonathan Denmark here. I'm friends with Tyler. And did we, were you at the event in Pittsfield several years ago? Okay. I thought I heard your story before, so it's nice to see you again.
Thank you.
I have a friend who has a also a genetic condition, and they were able to do gene therapy with egg extraction to make sure that their children do not have this issue. It was tremendously successful. Is that an option with the research that Angioma Alliance is conducting now?
Yeah, we have, there are two forms of our illness. There's the kind that Tyler has, and then there's the kind that my daughter has. So Tyler's is not a kind that passes down to children. It's just him. So there would be no way to do pregestational diagnosis using IVF. With the other groups, though, with the familial form, that's about 25% of our patients. Yeah, some folks are already using that. What we run into with it, though, is that if it's the woman that has the illness, the hormones that she has to take in order to participate in IVF and in that can cause brain hemorrhages. So it's, you know, it's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful solution for our families where it's the husband that's affected. It's not a real great thing for if it's the woman.
Right.
So going forward, what we're hoping for is gene therapy that would kick in after birth. So, or even in utero. You know, they're talking of all kinds of different things.
That's interesting. Thank you. And I was thinking about that specifically with your daughter and how you mentioned, you know, passing it on. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Other questions or thoughts? I mean, I know, Jeff Cook, I know you have never seen you in a room live or virtual and not have a question or something to share. Come on. Oh my goodness.
Put him on the spot.
Well, I'm very interested in terms of what I understand about Ty's condition and what he experienced. How something like that could be prevented or cured, because it was almost like a mechanical failure of a blood vessel back in here. How is that? How would you anticipate that there could be some medication that would be taken that would keep that from? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah. So, well, if it's a medicine, the failure that happens in these lesions is that normal cells that are in blood vessels are connected very, very tightly. It's called the blood-brain barrier, and things just don't go through the blood-brain barrier. In our lesions, in these cavernous malformations, there's been a genetic change that keeps that from happening. So the lesion cells are no longer have what are called tight junctions. The tight junctions are broken. So the medicines are, and this is where we get really into high school biology, the medicines are going to either correct the problem in the endothelial cells and therefore allow them to regain tight junctions, or they may use parasites, PERICYTES, not the kind that your dog gets, parasite cells to kind of buffer up and strengthen the junction so that it becomes tight, sort of like putting a seal on it. So that's.
So how do you know that there's somebody that needs to get that medication? There
Right.
have to be
Question.
some symptoms are happening early on. Something in Ty's case, it was vision. And as soon as something like that happens, you got to say, we got to figure out what this is. And if it possibly could be an angioma, then we better do this.
Yes, or what we're even more kind of science fiction-y working on are blood tests that let us know when somebody has this. And I could see this becoming just part of your regular panel of tests that you get at the doctor. If this CCM panel that they're working on right now turns out to be adaptable, applicable for other diseases as well, we could see where someone would know well ahead of time that they have a cavernous malformation.
There'll be something in the serum blood that they say, that's a marker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're looking at inflammatory markers. They're looking at
Right.
progesterone. They're looking at this connexin 43 isotope. There are different things that change in blood. There's also microbiome changes. So you can check a stool sample and see if somebody has CCM.
So Connie, is it your expectation, then let's go back again to the Tyler kind of problem, that we're going to medicate our way to a place that you're not going to need surgery?
All right. So the other fancy technology that's happening with Tyler's kind is focused ultrasound. And focused ultrasound is non-invasive. They use a sensitizing agent to make the lesion itself not need high temperatures in order to disappear, in order to be ablated. And then they just seriously focus an ultrasound like what you would use for an abdominal ultrasound, but in very, very, in a very focused way on the lesion. We're testing that in mice right now. And it's science fiction-y in that it could go either way. It's one of these high risk, high reward ventures where it's either going to cause people to hemorrhage, or mice. It's either going to cause the mice to hemorrhage more, or it's going to kill them. And so we will know probably within this time next year, whether or not it's a go to move it forward a little bit further and keep trying it.
So I'm sure this was stated in the patient's guide that I got, which was the first time I really understood what was going on. The incidence of these two kinds of problem are how great per 100,000? What are we looking at in terms of how it happens in the population? How lucky was Tyler?
Tyler was lucky, but he wasn't lottery lucky. He was 1 in 500 lucky. So it's pretty common for people to have a lesion. He was 1 in 2,400 lucky to have symptoms, to have something happen in the lesion. Yeah. So I wouldn't put your money with him yet.
I'm always betting on him. There's no problem.
Yeah, that is how common it is. And in certain parts of the US, we have founder mutations where the hereditary form has gone down in 2 different places, 2 different families since the 1600s. So there are thousands of people in New Mexico, and there are thousands of people in the deep South who have this because, great grandma had it and they have inherited it as well. And these are all in areas where the families have like 16 kids and cousins married cousins, and there's a lot of people.
Mm. Yeah. So I think you have successfully told us what you think is next, which is that we will have a cure. I mean, that's the good news. We're gonna and maybe possibly medicate our way out of this challenging issue that we have right now.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Use other
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
Medicate will be coming first, and then the
Yep.
other technology will be following on to make things even easier. It's
Yeah.
solvable. This is solvable, and anyone helping right now is part of that solution.
Yeah. Well, we advertise this as a short discussion, so we will be true to our word here. And I can't thank you all enough for your ongoing support for obviously me, and my one-on-one interactions with each of you are obviously far deeper than they can be on a Zoom call. We're all getting a little zoomed out, I guess. But wanted to express my gratitude for all of you for your support of Angioma Alliance. I mean, this is an organization that I think is on the right on it, just providing the kind of support that people need, and that's in and of itself huge. But then also is trying to find the cure, and again, right on the edge and kind of making that happen. So I will be committed to this organization as long as I can. I think it's really invaluable work. We are a smaller enterprise. This is considered a rare disease. It's not, doesn't get huge amounts of funding from, the NIH or anybody. And so we have to go and slog it out, and we're doing that. And great work is being done. So Connie, I can't thank you enough for your time, for the last 20 plus years of your life of trying to, do all the good work and fight the good fight that this organization needs. And so thank you very much for doing all that you do, and thank you guys for being here. And I guess that all being said, we'll call it a wrap. And thank you. And this is being recorded, as I mentioned at the beginning, so others will have a chance to look at it. And again, I want to thank everybody. So have a wonderful night. Be well.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Connie.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Connie.
Hi.
Thank you.